Hello, and welcome back to yet another video. This is the 19th episode in a Naruto Uzumaki story in which a few little changes might have a significant impact. Knowledge provided early in Naruto's career converted him from a hopeless loser to a powerful and skilled shinobi. Historical differences that have long ago passed have resulted in a totally different consequence than we imagined. After you've finished watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. To begin, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get the party started. The 3 Suna shinobi plus 1 Konoha shinobi had just passed the borders of Suna and were now traveling through one of the forests located within Hino Kuni. As they did, the Sabaku siblings were forced to listen to Naruto swear enough that any sailor would have likely died of a heart attack. That goddamn motherfucking team. What the hell does he think he's doing? Did he even fucking think about what would happen if he went to some motherfucking pedo douchebag like that damn snake and his cock muppet Kabuto? When I get my hands on that shit, I swear by Kami as my fucking witness I'm going to kick his little punk ass from here to Iwa. Naruto, you have been ranting and swearing for nearly 4 hours. Might I suggest you stop and focus on the mission? Gaara suggested in the same monotone voice he always used, not in the least bit affected by the blonde's foul temper and mouth. Unlike the other two who were actually beginning to get a bit disturbed by not only the vulgarity he was spouting but the imagination in some of the ways Naruto planned on torturing Sasuke if they got up to him. Naruto grunted a bit before acknowledging Gaara's words. Sorry, I'm just so pissed off that Sasuke team would actually do something like this. Maybe he didn't, Temari suggested, he could have been kidnapped. Doubtful, Naruto frowned and thought, while not as secure as it once was, Konoha's security was still pretty tight before I left. Sasuke team is fairly strong, it would have taken a lot of effort to kidnap him and someone would have been bound to notice the kind of chakra emissions necessary to fight on his level. The whiskered blonde shook his head. No, I have a feeling that he left of his own accord. Sasuke has always been power hungry, he wants enough power to destroy his brother Itachi and he doesn't seem to care how he gets it. He didn't add that Sasuke had likely felt threatened and jealous of Naruto's own increase in ability and power. While the blonde shinobi had not seen much of his old team since he was promoted to Chunin, he had spotted them in passing and whenever he was near, Sasuke had given him some of the most hateful glares he had ever seen. Not only that, but he had noticed that Sasuke had taken to following him when he had gone out to train, and Naruto had been forced to lose him many times, knowing that the raven-haired Jonin was likely trying to spy on his training method in order to gain whatever strength Naruto had for himself. So you think that this Sasuke kid is actually betraying your village for an S-class traitor who really shouldn't be trusted, given his history of betraying people, for power? Asked Kankuro, who gave a rather constipated-looking expression when Naruto nodded. How stupid can one kid get? He doesn't honestly think Orochimaru will grant him power, does he? Obviously he does, Naruto said. Quiet you two, I sense several presences up ahead. Gaara warned. How many and where are they? Asked Naruto. Gaara shook his head, I can't tell. I can only sense the presences vaguely. Naruto-kun, if you channel Yuki to your eyes you should be able to see them. Really? Naruto asked Kyuubi as she made herself known. Yes, it is a unique ability when becoming half, since you've become what you are. She and Naruto had stopped using the term demon and half-demon to describe each other, since Kyuubi was actually just a mass of extremely powerful and inhuman chakra, not a demon. Or at least, Kyuubi didn't consider herself to be a demon. According to her, the term demon is what humans used to place a label on beings that were beyond their power and understanding. It was a name made in ignorance, one that she only used because she did not give herself a label, and had been using terms in order to speak down to Naruto's level. As for Naruto, well, he didn't know what he was, but since Kyuubi didn't consider herself a demon, he wasn't sure if he should call himself a half-demon. He just knew that he wasn't fully human anymore. Since at least half of your energy comes from nature, you should have gained the ability to sense and see chakra. Naruto began channeling Yuki through his eyes, unaware that they were changing from their original blue to a royal and deep amethyst color, much like how they were when he transformed into his demon form. Though the others did notice and were slightly freaked out by it, minus Gaara, who just raised his eyebrows. Dude, what the hell is up with your eyes? Asked Kankuro. Naruto blinked as he looked over at him. What? Is something wrong with them? They're purple, Naruto-kun, Temari said, and they look a lot like fox eyes. Ah, don't worry about that. It's just an ability I have thanks to Kyuubi-chan, Naruto said. He turned his attention back to where the presences were detected. He saw what he guessed were people outlined in small blue dots that were slowly but steadily getting larger the closer they got. 2 of those dots had a sickly purple color mixing in them. I see 7 figures up ahead. 4 of them are on our right, close to where, if my memory serves, is the entrance to the Valley of the End. The other 3 are to the left, at least several miles away. Hey, Kyubi-chan, is this like some kind of dojutsu? No, that's not a dojutsu. It's just a basic ability I have that I passed on to you. You won't be able to copy moves like the Sharingan, or gain 360-degree X-ray vision like the Byakugan, just the basic ability to see chakra. Because I am just a massive chakra, I am more in tune with the world around me than humans are. Seeing as how you are more or less half of what I am, you have some of my lesser abilities. Ah, still a useful skill to have though. Indeed. Gaara, I want you to go and assist whoever is to the left. I would send the others, but I think you're enough to help whoever is there, and these 2 would probably just get in the way of your more destructive techniques. Naruto saw Gaara nod his head before using his sand to float away and towards the area his friend had given. Naruto then turned back to the others. We're going in hard, so keep your guard up. I'll be going in first since, no offense, I'm stronger than both of you. While I engage the enemy, I want you to assess the situation, and if our comrades are wounded, render first aid to them. Depending on how injured some of them are, one of you may need to escort them to Konoha. Hi, the 2 said in unison, causing Naruto to smile before they increased their pace. Things were not going well for one Shikamaru, or the ninja he had selected for this troublesome mission. From the moment he had been given his orders to retrieve Uchiha Sasuke before he could make his way to Orochimaru, he had known that the mission would not end well. And his theory was proven right. For as soon as they had caught up with the people who had likely kidnapped Sasuke, they had been attacked by this weird kid who was able to use his bones as a weapon. Both Neji and Lee had stayed behind in order to deal with the bone user. However, since they had not caught up, Shikamaru was assuming the worst possible scenario. To make matters worse, the moment they arrived in this clearing, they had been assaulted by a woman who could use some weird crystal jutsus to attack. So far they had no luck in retrieving Sasuke, and the Nara error was almost positive that said Uchiha was already in Orochimaru's clutches. And even if he wasn't, they still had to kill this woman, since she had set up some kind of crystal barrier that according to her would only break when she died or released the jutsu. In other words, the entire situation was troublesome. Kuji and Kiba had been fighting this lady for nearly an hour now. So far, they've had no luck in even landing so much as a scratch on the woman. Initially he and Kuji had tried to go with their standard strategy. He would trap her in his cage main no jutsu, and then Kuji would bulldoze the woman over. Things had not gone as planned. Instead, the woman had managed to switch herself out with a Suishu Bunshine crystal clone, and when Kuji smashed into it, he had gotten several dozen crystal shards stabbing into him for his troubles. He and Akamaru had been forced to defend the large Shindan until Kiba had safely dragged him away, since Kuji had already lost consciousness from blood loss by that time. The 3 of them had then tried to use teamwork to beat her, but the woman had defeated everything they threw at her. Her crystal attacks had been able to beat back any attack that Kiba and his ninja dog made, and the one time he had been able to get in close, she had merely used a crystal shield to keep from receiving any damage. And now they were on their last hope. Man, this mission has gone beyond troublesome. Shikamaru thought. We haven't even been able to lay a hand on this woman, nothing seems to work, and I haven't even been able to come up with a plan to beat her. She's simply too good and powerful for anything we can do to work. Shikamaru looked over when he heard a jutsu being called and found himself staring at a large, white, 2-headed wolf dog. The thing had a baleful expression as it glared at the woman they had been fighting. Drool dripped down its 2 mouths, hitting the ground and hissing as it ate through the rock and dirt below, showing that it was highly acidic. It was only a moment later before the large creature jumped into the air and began to spin, barreling towards the woman, who merely smirked and went through a few hand seals. Shoten, Kauskiyari, Crystal Release, Crystal Spears. She slammed her hands onto the ground and several spears made of crystal shot out of the ground, heading straight towards the giant dog. It was with great shock to the woman, however, when the dog smashed through her crystals with relative ease and continued on its way down. She was soon forced to use a kawarimi and replace herself with a log in order to escape the giant animal, and none too soon, as the 2-headed dog crashed where she had just been, gouging out a huge chunk of earth and creating a large trench. The creature stopped its spin as it stood at the end of the trench, growling as it began to sniff out the woman. Before it could find her, however, a loud shout came from the left. Shoten, Kasui, Crystal Release, Spike. The giant dog had only enough time to jump to the left as a large, nearly 50-foot spike shot straight out of the ground. Even then, it was not fast enough to get away entirely unscathed. The giant dog howled in both anger and pain as a large gash appeared on its left hind leg from getting cut up against the spike. Kesho, Kyotaro Kaku Shuriken, Crystal, Giant Hexagonal Shuriken. As the voice shouted again, the large dog had just enough time to look over to the left, to see the woman shooting a giant shuriken made of crystal. The giant dog did not even have time to formulate a plan of action before the shuriken impaled it in the shoulder. Before it could even howl in pain, several more stabbed into its flesh, one going through its left shoulder, one through its right front leg, and another that managed to stab into its paw. The large dog howled in agony before it was covered in a puff of smoke, and when the smoke cleared it revealed a bloody and beaten Kiba and Akamaru. The two looked like they had been through a meat grinder. Kiba, aside from the large tears in his clothes and skin, also had a large hole that went clear through his shoulder and a cut that ran along his left leg. By that same token, Akamaru's fur was splattered with red from all the cuts he had received, and there was an increasingly large red spot that was continuing to expand from the hole that the dog had suffered on his right front leg. "Akamaru," Kiba said weakly as he tried to move, only to find that he could not. "This is pathetic," the woman said as she began to walk over to the pair. However, before she could get close, a large blast of white flames streaked towards her, forcing the woman to dodge. Shikamaru turned to finally see a welcome sight as Naruto, Kankuro and Temari appeared, with the latter two running towards him. "Kitsune bye," Naruto said as he placed himself in front of Kiba. White flames burst from his body and surrounded his hands and forearms. "Sorry we're late, I would tell you I got lost on the road of life, but then I would be lying." The woman, who was like all of Orochimaru's henchmen, dressed in the off-white kimono that was held together by a purple bow, had dark blue hair and black eyes and looked to be 2 or 3 years older than Naruto. Guren narrowed her eyes as she looked at the whiskered blonde. "I recognize you," she glared at him. "Your name is Uzumaki Naruto, a B-rank ninja who caught Orochimaru's attention during the Chunin exams." Naruto shivered. "Great, I've got some pedophiliac snake interested in me. That's really not something I need to hear." Guren's eyes twitched, but she did her best to ignore the blonde's last statement. "Orochimaru-sama said that if I were to ever see you, that I was to kill you and bring your corpse to him so he could study it in the future. Sorry, but I have no interest in getting my corpse defiled by some pedophile like him," Naruto replied. "Now then, why don't you be a good girl and tell where Sasuke team is? If you do, I might not hurt you." The woman narrowed her eyes before smirking. "He's long gone by now. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he's already with Orochimaru-sama. I wouldn't be surprised if Orochimaru-sama has already possessed his body." Naruto growled. "Fine, I guess I'll just have to kill you and then continue on to drag his ass back." "You seem confident in yourself," the woman said. "I have to be. After all, if I don't have confidence in myself, then who else will?" A cage bunshine phased into existence next to Naruto and rushed over to Kiba and Akamaru, lifting them as gently as possible and bringing them over to Temari and the others. "Now that they're out of the way, it's time to get started." As the battle between Naruto and the crystal user began, the cage bunshine Naruto set Kiba and Akamaru down before unrolling a scroll that the original had given to him. "Temari, I need you to help me wrap these two up. Do you know basic field medical practices?" "Of course," Temari said as she kneeled next to him and began to help patch the two up as best she could. "Shikamaru," said Shinon, looked at the Naruto clone who was still working on cleaning Kiba's wound. "I need you to tell me everything you know about this woman the boss is fighting." Shikamaru sighed. "It's troublesome, but I don't have much information to give you. All I can tell you are that her abilities seem to be based on crystal-based jutsu. I believe it is some kind of bloodline, since I have never heard of Shoten Jutsu before. Her abilities are also far beyond myself and the others. As you can see, we haven't even been able to lay a hand on her. I would assume her skills to be high-level Jonin. She's probably around Kakashi's level, if not better." Naruto swore. "Damned if she's that strong, then I'm not entirely sure if I can beat her." Another clone phased into existence before dispelling, sending the information he had learned to the original. "All we can do now is patch up your team as best we can and get them back to the village." Half an hour earlier, Neji and Lee watched as odd black markings began to spread across Kimimaro's body. When the mission had started, this man was the first one they had run into, and having read the reports about this particular ninja's strength from the battle others had seen when he had been fighting against the Nibi Jinchuriki, the two had decided to stay and fight him off while the others went on ahead. That was nearly 2 hours ago and both Neji and Lee were near exhaustion. Kimimaro was a taijutsu specialist much like them, however it was clear that he was superior to them. While the battle had started off simple enough, with the two Konoha ninja trading blows with the Auto Shinobi, it had only lasted until Kimimaro felt he had learned all he needed to. Since then, the pale-skinned ninja had seemingly turned up the heat and all of his physical attributes had gained a significant increase in both speed and strength. Neji and Lee had done their best to fend off the attacks, and in many cases had managed to give it as good as they had. But no matter how much damage he received, Kimimaro would just get right back up thanks to his bloodline. His bones seemed to protect him, and not even Neji's famed Juken seemed capable of breaking through them. And now it looked like the fight was about to be picked up even more. "You two are fairly talented for trash," Kimimaro said, though Neji was unsure whether to call it a compliment or not. "To force me to use my cursed seal is no small feat, however, this is where it ends." Kimimaro rushed forward, his speed surpassing what it had been by a good margin. In retaliation, Lee shot off and clashed with the pale ninja, using his speed to dodge many of the attacks that were coming for him. The Bolkajanan managed to duck under a swipe from the Auto Ninja's odd-bone sword, before planting a hand on the ground and launching a kick towards the bone user. However, Kimimaro was much quicker now and was able to backpedal and dodge the attack rather easily. He was about to move back in when Neji appeared on his left, aiming several jabs at the Tenketsu on the left side of his torso. Before the Kaguya had activated his cursed seal, those attacks would have hit. They would not have done anything more than stung, but they would have at least hit him. Instead of hitting Kimimaro, the attacks flew past him as he dodged to the right by rolling along the ground. He came up and aimed a slash at Neji, one that the Konohajinan saw coming thanks to his Byakugan, but due to the speed of the attack was unable to dodge all the way, and ended up being spun around as he received a slash on his left arm. As Neji hit the ground, Kimimaro advanced on him to end the Hyuga's life. Fortunately for Neji, Rock Lee managed to engage the pale ninja before said ninja could reach him. Lee launched a powerful kick at Kimimaro, one which was dodged by bending backwards and letting it pass over. Rather than be deterred by this, the taijutsu specialized spun on a heel and lashed out with a low kick. This one did manage to connect, but Kimimaro merely rolled on his back and kicked back up on his feet. The moment he did, Lee was there and managed to kick him in the chest, however several factors prevented it from doing much, if any damage. The first was that thanks to his bloodline, Kimimaro's bones could be made to be so dense that the weight prevented Lee's attack from moving him more than a couple of inches back. 2. Lee was beginning to tire after 2 hours of battle and another 24 of running to catch up with Kimimaro and the other Auto Ninja. And 3. Kimimaro's ribs were protruding from his chest, and had caught the Jinan's foot in them as well as stopping it from actually connecting with his body. Kimimaro looked at the Bokujinan with a dull expression. "Karamatsu no Mai," he exclaimed in a dead tone. Lee did not even have time to curse his misfortune, not that he would do such an unyouthful thing, as Kimimaro spun his body around and used his momentum to dislocate Lee's ankle and send him flying back towards Neji. "You alright, Lee?" asked Neji as Sejinan landed next to him with a thud. "I am fine, Neji-san," Lee grimaced as he tried to move his dislocated leg, only to be rewarded with stinging pain. "But I seem to be diminishing in youth." Were it not for the seriousness of their situation, Neji would have rolled his eyes. Even in the face of death, all Lee thinks about is being youthful. "I commend you two on lasting this long." Kimimaro walked towards them. "As a reward, I will ensure that your deaths are as painless as possible." "Tsubaki no Mai," Kimimaro called out, as he began the first dance in his repertoire to take care of the pesky shinobi that had been fighting him. Only to be stopped as a large amount of sand attempted to latch onto him. "It looks like you two could use some help," a voice spoke up behind them. Turning, Lee and Neji saw Gaara standing on a pile of sand that was floating several feet off the ground, his arms crossed and a typical blank expression on his face. "You are Gaara, correct?" asked Neji as he dredged up the memory of the boy from the Chunin exams. "That is correct," Gaara answered, turning to face the two-leaf shinobi. "I along with my two siblings and Naruto were ordered to come here and help you." "So Naruto-kun is here as well," Lee grinned. "What a most youthful comrade to be helping us despite not having even been in the village." Gaara looked at Lee with a raised eyebrow, before turning to the Kaguya. "Since you two seem to be exhausted, I will take care of him." As he spoke, sand came up from under the two and floated them off the ground, taking them away from where the battle would happen so he could use his more destructive techniques. "You think you can defeat me, Trash?" asked Kimimaro as he yanked his bone blade towards him, when the sand dispersed back towards Gaara. "I will show you the error of your ways." "We shall see," Gaara replied in his monotone voice. Kesho, Rokaku Shuriken, Rambu, Crystal, Hexagonal Shuriken, Wild Dance. Several dozen shuriken made of crystals shot towards Naruto, who brought his fists to his side and began to channel wind chakra into them. A second later he thrust them out, creating two powerful tornadoes that shattered the crystal projectiles like they were glass. A second later Naruto was speeding off to the left, his form blurring as he used his immense speed to dodge several spikes that shot out of the ground when the woman he was fighting cried out, "Shoten, Kasui, crystal spike." As he moved he flicked one of his wrists, launching several shuriken of his own, and then began doing one-handed seals with the other hand. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several shuriken became several dozen, and all of them sailed towards the woman. However, Naruto was far from finished as he thrust out his other hand palm first, unleashing a gust of wind that increased the speed at which the projectiles were going. However, the crystal user was far from surprised or even worried as she went through a set of hand seals far faster than Naruto could do, slamming her hands into the ground when she finished. Shoten, Kabe no Kesso, crystal release, wall of crystals. A large crystal wall shot out of the ground, blocking the shuriken. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he noticed that, even with their enhanced speed, the shuriken didn't even make a scratch on the crystal wall. "You know, that's a pretty powerful ability you have," Naruto commented lightly. "I assume you have some kind of bloodline?" "That's right," the woman smirked as her shield dispelled. "It's called Shoten, and with it I can combine earth and lightning to create crystals that are harder than diamonds. It's why I am one of Orochimaru-sama's most powerful ninja." "Huh? I'm rather surprised he's taken such an interest in you," the whiskered blonde commented lightly. "I mean, we all know Oro team has a thing for little boys. I guess that's why Kabu team is his right-hand man and not you. You simply can't play hide the snake in the trousers with him." The woman gritted her teeth as she began speeding through seals. "How dare you insult Orochimaru-sama? Take this. Shoten, Asai Chayuziki, crystal release, crushing pillar." Naruto's danger sense had him jumping back just as a larger pillar made of crystal slammed into the ground where he had previously been, generating such force that it sent earth up from the ground and unleashing a shockwave that knocked Naruto off balance. The crystal user used the blonde's moment of distraction to launch another pillar at him, hoping to turn him into nothing more than a bloody stain on the ground. However, Naruto was able to use Kawarimi to escape at the last second, appearing on her left where he began to charge towards her. Going through more hand seals, the woman thrust out her hands, Kesso, Rokaku Shuriken, Rambu. Several dozen shuriken came at him again. Rather than break them to pieces, Naruto used the enhanced clarity and vision his eyes granted him to weave through the hailstorm of projectiles. Naruto smirked as he continued on, while his eyes were nowhere near the Sharingan's clarity, and did not allow him the ability to predict enemy movement. They did grant him extremely powerful vision, and he did not suffer from tunnel vision when he was moving at extreme speeds. As he closed the distance between him and the woman, he reared his fist back, using his power over his Kitsune-bai to engulf said appendage in white flames. Kitsune-bai. Naruto launched his fist forward, unleashing the powerful white flames upon the woman. The fire blasted from Naruto's fist in what looked like a funnel that expanded the farther from his fist the fire got. When the attack ended, the Konoha and Suna ninja were witness at the side of a large glass trench, the heat from Naruto's attack having been so high that it had literally turned the ground into glass. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he looked at the area, knowing that this woman was far too skilled to actually be hit by such an attack. His caution paid off as he felt a slight shift in the air behind, making him duck and roll forward as a crystal blade slashed through where he had been. Kipping back up on his feet, the whiskered blonde spun around and saw the woman he was fighting, looking no worse than she had before he launched his attack, not even singed. He also noticed that her wrists had crystallized blades attached to them, no doubt what she had just attacked him with. Shoten, Tsuin Suishutu, crystal release, twin crystal blades, the woman stated as she saw the blonde eyeing her crystal-covered hands. Naruto smirked as he flicked his left hand and unsealed his katana. "I suppose if you're going to use some form of blades, I should as well. After all, one good turn deserves another." Getting into a basic stance that Tenten had taught him, the whiskered blonde waited to see if his opponent would make the first move. She did, blasting towards him at speeds that rivaled if not surpassed his own. "She's definitely of a higher level than the average jonin," Naruto thought to himself as the woman came closer. She sent out a slash with her right blade, aiming at his neck and forcing him block the attack. She smirked, her second blade coming to bear from the other side as the whisker-marked blonde was forced to jump back since his blade had been occupied by the one on her other wrist. The woman followed him, launching several quick thrusting motions that Naruto was forced to dodge and deflect with his own weapon. The attacks were quick and came one after the other, meaning Naruto had to be careful not to get his blade locked with one of hers, since doing so would allow the woman to bring her other blade to bear. This seemed to go on for a few minutes as Naruto tried to find a weakness in the woman's attacks, and was surprised when he found none. He blocked another attack, using his superior physical strength to push her back. However, the woman merely used the momentum his push granted her to spin around and come in with her other blade. Unfortunately, Naruto was too slow to block or dodge the attack and ended up getting a cut on his left arm, though it was thankfully not a deep wound. "Looks like first blood goes to me," the woman said with a satisfied smile. "So it does," Naruto replied, not at all bothered the blood on his arm since the wound had already healed up nicely. Though do not think such a small wound means anything. Naruto charged in, deciding that letting this woman go on the offensive was a bad idea. He came in with a horizontal slash from the left, one which his enemy easily blocked. Pushing off her, Naruto spun around and came in with an upward slash from the other side. His opponent jumped back to avoid it, but her eyes widened when she saw a thin green blade of wind coming at her. She held up her arms in a cross guard and covered them in crystal, letting them take the brunt of the attack. It was a good thing for her that she did, as the wind blade managed to cut a decent-sized chunk out of her crystal and would have no doubt taken her arm off had she not reinforced them. Bringing her arms down, the woman was just in time to see Naruto in front of her, coming in with a powerful lunge that would impale her in the chest. However, like all powerful ninja, she was able to dodge the attack, twisting her body to the side and using one of her blades to redirect the attack, even though it was nearly at point blank. At the same time, she used her other bladed hand to lash out at the blonde, cutting into his side before he could regain his balance. Naruto hissed in pain as he tumbled forward before using his momentum to roll along the ground, coming up on his feet. The moment he did, however, the blonde was forced to spin and bring his blade up to block an attack from the crystal user. Already knowing she would come at him with her other blade, Naruto pushed her away and dodged to the left. He came at her again, swing his blade in a horizontal arch, one that his opponent blocked, but due to the angle and force caused her to stumble backwards and become slightly off balance. Using this opportunity, Naruto slashed at her again, enhancing his blade with wind chakra to slice through her. Only for the figure he had sliced through to turn into crystal as it split in half down the center. A Suishu Bunshine. Shoten, Kasui. The moment Naruto heard the jutsu announced, he made liberal use of the Sunshine to dodge the incoming crystal spears, which impaled the ground he had been on just moments after he had vacated it. Turning, Naruto found the woman a little ways away, already going through another set of hand seals. Shoten, Asai Chiyuzuki. Another large crystal pillar slammed into the spot he was located on, crushing the area and creating a crater, as well as generating a powerful shockwave as spiderweb cracks spread out from the center of impact. "It looks like that got him," the woman said with a smirk. "Not quite." Her eyes widened as several hands burst from the ground and grabbed onto her feet and ankles. Right in front of her, Naruto burst up from the ground, a spinning orb of purple Yuki in his hands. Rasengan. He thrust the orb of violent energy forward, slamming it into the woman's chest. However, rather than drill into flesh, blood and bones like normal, the woman shattered into crystalline fragments. "Damn it!" Naruto growled. He was really beginning to hate those clones. He would have wondered if this was what it felt like for people to battle him when he heard Guren's voice call out another jutsu. Shoten, Shako Okakunemi no Kujo, Darkened Masses, Wave of Destruction. As the jutsu was called, a shadow came over Naruto, making him look up to see what appeared to be a wave of crystal bearing down on him. "Kami, I hate my life." Kimimaro was forced to dodge several more sand spears that Gaara had launched his way, weaving between them as he tried to close the distance between him and his enemy. However, as soon as he passed through the spears, a large pillar of sand smashed into where he was standing. Or where he had been standing, since the moment he had seen the sand pillar rushing towards he had dodged to the left. As he came in closer, Kimimaro let loose with his sword, lashing at Gaara and making the blade elongate to compensate for the fact that he was not close enough to hit the redhead with a standard attack. Before it could get too far, sand shot up from the ground and latched onto it, ceasing its forward movement. Holding out a hand, Gaara made a "come here" motion, and in response the sand yanked on the blade, making Kimimaro fly towards him. The Ichibi Jinchuriki made several more motions with his other hand and caused a wave of sand to slam into the bone user, sending him flying back and skidding along the ground as the sand rent into his flesh. However, that did not deter Kimimaro, who unleashed a sword slash powerful enough to create a shockwave and disperse the sand. As the Kaguya stood up, Gaara could see that his attack had done a lot of damage, rending the flesh off of Kimimaro's face and body. It also revealed that his attack had not been able to penetrate the older teen's bones, which looked almost like armor underneath all of his skin. That attack was most impressive. Had it been anyone else, I am sure they would have died, Kimimaro stated. However, an attack like that will not work on me. My bones are so dense that they are harder than steel, and weak attacks like what you just used will not work on me. Then I suppose I will have to try something more powerful, Gaara proclaimed, his voice not giving away any of his feelings. The redhead raised his arms and sent out a powerful wave of sand, one which Kimimaro attempted to dodge. He succeeded, but it was a hollow victory, as the moment he did another wave was in front of him, and this one managed to latch onto him. The sand began to wrap around Kimimaro's form, and no matter how hard he struggled he could not seem to break free. Soon enough even his head was covered up as the sand became a cocoon. Sabakukyu. Gaara made a clenching motion with his left hand, causing the sand to clench and squeeze, crushing the pale-skinned bone user and sending blood flying out of the sand. Gaara frowned as, rather than feeling the satisfaction he normally got when crushing an opponent with his sand, he felt resistance from the inside. Before he could wonder about what it meant, the sand cocoon burst, scattering away in all directions. When it cleared, it showed Kimimaro, who had taken on a dinosaur-like appearance complete with a tail. Several large bones also protrude from his now darkened brownish-maroon skin. "That was impressive," Kimimaro said, his voice not belying the pain he was in. "Very impressive. It seems that I will need more effort to beat you." Gaara grunted, "And I'll need more sand to crush you." Guren panted a bit, before regaining her breath as she stood. She looked at the massive crystallized landscape that her jutsu had caused. It almost looked like a sandy beach, were it not for the fact that A, there was no water, and B, the sand was actually thousands of light pink crystals. "Damn," she cursed as she looked at the clearing, "I forgot Orochimaru-sama wanted his corpse for study. Didn't I tell you I have no desire to let that pedophile touch me?" A voice spoke up behind her. Guren's eyes widened as she spun around and they landed on Naruto, though he was not looking as good as he had when the fight started. His whole left arm was bleeding rather profusely. It looked to have been skinned by a hacksaw, if such a thing were possible. Though that did little to change the fact that the blonde brat was still standing defiantly in front of her. "How did you survive that?" Guren growled in frustration. "That was one of my most powerful jutsu. There is no way you could have survived." Naruto clasped his hands in a prayer sign and gave a small bow. "I myself was wondering how I would get out of such a predicament. However, then I remembered that if one always holds faithful to it, the good log will provide. And lo and behold, as those thoughts came to me, I felt the blessed pull as the log answered my plight." Guren stared at Naruto for a full 5 minutes as if trying to figure out what the hell the blonde male just said, and if he was on any kind of drugs. Finally she replied, "You mean you used Kawarimi, right?" Somehow she felt the need to clarify. "Isn't that what I just said?" asked Naruto, a little irritated that she had actually had to ask something that he felt was stupid. How else could he have escaped the evil crystal wave of doom? "Hirishin?" Guren felt her eyebrows twitch. "No, you made some kind of shitty convoluted speech about logs." "Exactly," Naruto replied. The crystal user growled before speeding through hand seals. "I'm tired of dealing with you. You've been an annoying little flea ever since this battle started." Shoten, Suishu Mori, Crystal Release, Crystal Lance. A rather large amount of crystal coalesced around Guren's right arm, forming a large and deadly-looking lance. Once the technique was complete, she rushed towards Naruto, intent on ending the blonde's life. "Something tells me a normal katana won't be enough for this," Naruto murmured as he pulled out a scroll. Unrolling the scroll, Naruto bit his thumb and smeared some blood along its length. There was a puff of smoke as Guren reared her lanced arm back. She thrust it forward, intent impaling the blonde, only to be met with a loud clang. When the smoke cleared, Guren gaped as she saw a rather large cleaving sword blocking her lance. Naruto chuckled as he saw her expression. "I'd like you to meet Kubikara Houcho." Pulling the sword back, Naruto grunted as he gave the sword a ferocious swing. Guren jumped back as the large blade passed through where she had been. She could feel the air currents moving as the sword sliced through her previous spot with a loud whoosh. Thinking that the blonde would need time before he could bring such a large sword to bear on her again, Guren came in fast and hard. It was to her great surprise that the large cleaver was there to stop her a second time, coming in from the left and forcing her back. "Looks like I finally found something I'm better at than you." Naruto grinned as he sent several slashes that were actually very fast considering the size of the sword he was using. "Don't get cocky," Guren shouted as she attempted to cut one of his arms, or at least a hand, off. Naruto, however, let her arm lance hit the flat end of his sword as he smacked it away like a baseball, at the same time shattering the lance and getting a grunt of pain from Guren. "Come on," Naruto shouted as he sent several powerful slashes at her, created huge wind blades to launch themselves from the sword. Guren's eyes widened as she began to jump and dodge out of the way. Out of the corner of her eyes she saw the huge gashes in the land that the blades had made. If one of those touched her, she would likely be done for. Growling, she realized that an up-close competition against that sword would not end well for her, or at the very least take far too long to win against. Guren released her crystal lance and went through more hand seals so she could try a different approach. Shoten, Suishu Senbone, Crystal Release, Crystal Senbone. She called out the name of her jutsu before flicking her wrist and sending several dozen Senbone needles at Naruto. Said blonde narrowed his eyes as he resealed Kubikiri Hacho, and then channeled chakra into the seal on his left hand, creating a puff of smoke as he unsealed his bow staff. Naruto bent his legs slightly into one of the defensive stances as the Senbone drew closer. When they finally got near him, he began to do what many could almost consider a dance, as he spun around and twirled the staff so swiftly that the glint from the sun left a slight afterimage in its wake. Along with that, he channeled wind chakra into his movements, increasing the quality of his defense as he destroyed all of the Senbone coming at him. When the Senbone stopped coming, Naruto was quick to reseal his staff and look towards where Guren had been previously, only to see no one there. He narrowed his eyes and was already in motion as his opponent dropped from the sky, landing where he was with impressive force. "I don't know how you expected such a useless tactic to work on me," Naruto said as he tried to rile his opponent up and get her angry enough to make a mistake. "I've seen better tactics from this one fangirl I know, and she ended up getting blown away literally." However, rather than get angry, Guren smirked. "Oh, you think so, huh? Well then, it's a good thing that wasn't all there was to my strategy, wasn't it?" Naruto's eyes widened as a pair of arms wrapped around his arms and chest, locking him in place and leaving him unable to use jutsu. Of course, he was capable of performing a seal-less Kawarimi and was just in the process of doing that. However, before he could, Guren was right in front of him, a rather wicked-looking set of crystallized knives attached to her forearms. Realizing he did not have the necessary amount of time to use his favorite escape jutsu, he did the only thing he could think of. He twisted his body ever so slightly so that the attack that had been aimed at his heart merely stabbed into his left lung. Did it hurt worse than an Akimichi using his expansion jutsu and sitting on you? Yes, but at least Naruto was alive and, despite the pain, able to react in time for Guren's next attack. As said woman came in with her other arm to finish the job, Naruto channeled some of his Yuki through two fingers in his left hand, forming a whip. With a quick flick of his wrist, he was able to wrap the whip around Guren's leg. After that, three things happened near simultaneously. The first was Naruto smashed his right foot into the knee of what he now identified as a Suishu Bunshine, shattering the kneecap and dispelling the clone. The second thing to happen was him giving a hard yank on the whip, which led into the third thing that happened. Guren, who had not been expecting any kind of attack or retaliation, was yanked off her feet, making the crystal knife she had stabbed into Naruto come out of him rather abruptly, causing a large squirt of blood as she hit the ground hard. Guren quickly rolled away from the blonde shinobi before coming to her feet, and quickly crouching down in a defensive stance. It was largely unnecessary as Naruto was currently in no condition to fight, as evidenced by the fact that he was currently kneeling on the ground with one hand pressed to a rather large, gaping hole in his chest. "I guess my tactic wasn't so bad if it got you, huh?" Guren smirked as she decided to add dirt to his wound. "Or maybe you just suck." Naruto chuckled a bit, even though it hurt just a breath. "Yeah, maybe, that'll at least teach me not to open my trap the next time I'm in combat." "Kyubi? Can you give me a damage assessment?" asked Naruto as he listened to Guren continue to insult him, knowing that it gave him time to come up with a counter plan. "It's not as extensive as the damage that was done to you thanks to Gaara in the preliminaries," Kyubi started as she fed a small amount of her Yuki through the seal. "But it's potentially deadlier. That crystal weapon of hers managed to pierce your lung. Were you still human, that attack would have killed you already." Naruto grunted a bit. "How long until it heals?" There was a moment's pause. "On its own, about 4 hours. However, I doubt that Guren woman you're fighting is going to give you the opportunity." Naruto could almost feel the smirk on Kyubi's face as she paused again. "However, that won't be a problem if you use my power. You won't be able to even use one tail due to how injured you are, but it will be more than enough for your wound to heal quickly." "Alright then, think you can give me some juice?" "Of course." Naruto smirked as he felt Kyubi's Yuki flow through his body. It was only about half a tail, but it was an instant relief as he felt his wounds mending themselves. However, his increase in power had not gone unnoticed. Guren had felt it too and had stopped her gloating to try and finish him off. Shoten, Omiwatari no Jutsu, Crystal Release, the God's Crossings technique. A long stream of sharp crystal burst forward and to bind and impale Naruto, only for him to go up in a puff of smoke and a log to take his place. Fuuten, Kaze no Yaiba. Guren rolled to the left as a wind blade passed through the spot she had been standing, leaving a large gouge in the earth. She spun around in time to see Naruto throw another wind blade at her, and was forced to dodge again. This continued for some time as Naruto began making complicated attack patterns with the wind blades, hoping to corral Guren into a corner so to speak, so she would have nowhere to dodge. However, the Shoten user was more than up to the task of dodging as she weaved through the storm of wind blades, jumping, rolling, spinning and flipping out of the way with a dancer's grace. After a few minutes, Naruto was forced to stop as he cut through the Guren within his pattern and found out she was a Bunshine. And just in time too, for almost a second after he had bisected the Suishu Bunshine, Guren appeared in his blind spot and attempted to impale him with a rather large lance. Naruto was fortunate to have already been on the move, rolling to the right as Guren struck out at where he had been. The blonde Konoha shinobi kicked back up on his feet and spun around, aiming his gauntlet at Guren and firing a kunai as well as a barrage of senbon for good measure. However, Guren was not to be outdone as she went through a set of hand seals and slammed her hands on the ground. Shoten, Kabe no Kesso. A large wall came out and blocked the senbon and kunai from hitting her. A few seconds later it came down, and Guren was forced into battle with three Narutos who used a good combination of teamwork to try and take her down. Crystal knives once again appeared on the crystal user's forearms, even as she continued dodging strikes from the blonde's clones. Once they were fully formed, she let one of the clones come in close and launch a punch at her. However, she merely blocked it, using her forearm and more importantly, the knife on it. The clone's hand was split down the middle and before it could scream, it was dispelled. The other two clones attempted to attack, however it was all wasted as she wove between them and lashed out with simultaneous strikes that took them both out. However, the dispelling of his clones had given Naruto a decent smokescreen for cover, as he made liberal use of the Sunshine to appear right next to Guren and launch a kick to her midsection. While Guren was surprised by the sudden attack, she had no intention of letting Naruto hit her, and jumped back while at the same time kicking out her own leg to knock his off course. The action caused Naruto to stumble off balance, giving the crystal user a chance to lash out with a fist that connected solidly with the blonde's jaw. However, rather than seeing her blade go through Naruto's face, the blonde disappeared within a puff of smoke, signifying it was a cage Bunshine. Fuuten, Kamikaze Seiken. The attack came from directly behind her and smashed into Guren, making the crystal user shatter into crystal. Shoten, Kasui. Naruto swore as he jumped into the air, just in time to dodge the large spike that jutted up from the ground. He landed on the ground some feet away, panting from the amount of effort he had exerted to keep up with the purple-haired woman. Before either of them could attack again, the ground began to rumble. Both Naruto and Guren looked over to the left where a large amount of what looked like bones, but were far too large to be in Naruto's opinion, were jutting up from the ground. If Kimimaro gone that far, then whoever is over there must be good, Guren commented to herself, though Naruto heard every word. However, it also means whoever he is fighting is also dead. Naruto chuckled, I'll believe that when I see it. Gaara isn't just some half-pound weakling who can be taken out just like that. We'll see, Guren replied as she began more hand seals. In any event, you've been enough of a thorn in Orochimaru-sama's side and it's time I got rid of you. Shoten, Omiwatari no Jutsu. Gaara stared at the now dead Kaguya Kimimaro, who had just been milliseconds away from killing him. A part of him could not believe he had come so close to dying. Even in his battle with Naruto he had not been that close to death. The thought that he had just had a brush with death gave him chills. Not that he would allow it to affect his outward demeanor. He may not be a killing machine anymore, but he still had a reputation to keep. Are you two alright? He asked, looking at the two other Genin he was floating in the air. I am alright, my most youthful comrade. Lee somehow managed to do the nice guy pose as he floated there. Thank you for asking. I am fine, Neji said. Gaara nodded as he began to float them a safe distance away from the bone forest that was now sticking up from the previous battlefield. Then we should head to Konoha. What about our most youthful comrades that went on ahead? Asked Lee, not really comfortable leaving the people he had come with in possible danger. Naruto is with them, Gaara said, so they will be fine. He had confidence that his blonde friend could handle anything that came his way. Separation line, Naruto-kun, you need to end this battle soon, said QB worriedly. Even with my Yuki you're almost out of juice. I would love to end this fight, but as you can see this chick obviously doesn't, Naruto replied tiredly as he dodged another spike of crystal. He looked at the woman who had sent it and was pleased to see she was looking just as exhausted as he was, with several cuts running along her clothes and skin, along with her heavy breathing and slightly slumped posture. Looks like neither of us really have the energy to do much, Naruto commented, trying to make her talk so he could gain a breather. He would be fine in a few minutes, but she was only human, so it would take her longer and he would eventually gain the advantage. Guren scowled. It seems you're right. It was humiliating to admit that this boy had tired her out. She had not expected this battle to last anywhere near as long as it had. That doesn't mean I don't still have enough energy to kill you. Well then, how about both of us? A voice spoke up and both of them looked to see Hatake Kakashi appear a little ways from them. Kakashi, said Naruto, surprised to his old sensei. Yo, Kakashi replied, you look like you just got the shit kicked out of you by a woman. Naruto's eyes twitched, no shit. Really? Gee, thanks for telling me that, I had no clue I looked that way. Kakashi just chuckled. Hatake Kakashi, Guren said, though inwardly she was infuriated. Damn. I don't have enough chakra to deal with both him and the blonde, I don't even have enough energy to deal with just him. It looks like this is my cue to leave. She looked over at Naruto, frowning. You got lucky, kid. Naruto watched as she slowly sank into the ground, and another second later the crystal leading to the Valley of the End shattered. Still cautious, the blonde Chunin took a look around, both with his eyes and other senses. I don't sense her anymore, Kyuubi, can you? No, she's gone, Kyuubi replied. Thank Kami, Naruto said out loud as he slumped down onto his butt. His exhaustion was finally setting in and he knew he would need a good night's sleep before he was back to normal. Tired? Asked Kakashi with his usual eye smile. Naruto just grunted, shut up. Ma, no need for that Naruto. Naruto-kun, said Temari, who had walked up to him now that the fight was over. Now that the battle was over, we should probably get Dogboy and the others back to Konoha. Right, Naruto grunted and attempted to stand up, only to fail. Growling, he tried again and fell back down, causing Temari to giggle. He looked up at her and pouted, it's not funny. Of course it's funny, she shot back, smiling, just look at how beat up you are. I fail to see the hilarity of this situation. Your loss. While Gaara managed to defeat Kimimaro, however, the crystal user got away, Naruto said as he finished giving his report to Tsunade, seeing as how he was the only ninja who had fought Guren that wasn't in the hospital. Standing off to the side of the busty Hokage was Shizune, the woman's ever-faithful aide and assistant, and Tonton was eating from a dog bowl on the blonde woman's other side. Tsunade sighed as leaned her elbows on her desk, her hands held in front of her face. I see, so we have no clue as to the status of Uchiha Sasuke. We know that he managed to reach Ado but nothing else. This entire situation was turning into one large clusterfuck as far as she was concerned. Not only did they have no information on whether or not Orochimaru had managed to possess Sasuke's body, Jiraiya was out of contact, extracting one of his contacts in Iwa who had gotten into some kind of trouble, which meant they wouldn't be able to get any information on the situation from him. Sometimes she really had to wonder if coming back to be Hokage was the right thing to do. Do you think Orochimaru managed to use his body possession jutsu on Sasuke? Asked Naruto, not liking this situation at all, mainly because he just didn't know what to make of it. While he would still never consider Sasuke a friend, the fact was the raven-haired Uchiha had been his teammate, and Naruto had at the very least trusted Sasuke enough to watch his back. Naruto just couldn't understand why someone like Sasuke would willingly go to Orochimaru knowing what was in store for him. No, wait, yes I can. The blonde reflected, resisting the urge to growl. Sasuke teams always preferred taking the quicker paths to power. If he thought going to Oro team would make him stronger, then he would do it in a heartbeat. Naruto gave an internal snort, and people call me an idiot. You are an idiot, Kyuubi's amused voice came in through the seal. Naruto's eye began to twitch violently. Somehow, he felt he should have expected Kyuubi to make some kind of comment on his thoughts. The woman loved teasing him more than anything else. She said it was because she was bored, and that he should be honored she was even talking to him. He just thought Kyuubi loved being mean. How am I an idiot? I'm way more intelligent now than I used to be. Fuck, I literally had intelligence pounded into my skull by Anko Ne-chan. I've got the bruises to prove it. Seriously, having a woman who would not only quiz you on the stuff she made you read, but beat the utter living crap out of you and enjoy doing it had been the ultimate form of motivation to get smarter. You may have more knowledge, but that doesn't necessarily make one smart. Knowledge gained but not used does not make one intelligent, it just proves even more that you are an idiot. Whatever, Naruto sighed, not in the mood to listen to Kyuubi poking fun at him. I've got more important things to do than listen to you. Turning his attention back towards the busty Hokage, he realized she had been talking for quite some time. I'm sorry, what were you saying? Tsunade scowled at Naruto for not paying attention to her and making her repeat herself. I said it's quite possible that he has. Unfortunately, Jiraiya is out of contact and he is the only person who might be capable of giving us an answer. And even then it's not likely. As far as I know, Jiraiya doesn't have any spies within Ado. Wait, You're telling me that Uro-sennin's gone off the map? Said Naruto, scowling as he figured the damn pervert was off somewhere doing what he did best, perving on women. That stupid bastard is supposed to train me. How the hell could he just up and leave? Sure, Naruto had known that he would be gone while he was in Suna, but he had expected the man to be back in a few days. And it hadn't been like he needed Jiraiya to help him get the last exercise down for his wind chakra. The man didn't even have an affinity for it, after all. But that didn't excuse him from just running off to gallivanting around in search of sleazy bars where he could waste his money on booze and women. Tsunade knew the look on Naruto's face. It had been one she'd possessed when she got the pervert peeking on her that one time. Still, while somewhat tempted to tell the young boy what his sensei was really doing, she knew that letting out even a hint of what the man was up to could force him into a dangerous situation. Instead she said, "What exactly can you tell me about the crystal user you fought?" "She's strong," Naruto started, frowning as he remembered his fight with Guren. "Before I had even entered the fight she managed to take out Shikamaru, Kuji, and Kiba. As I said before, she uses crystal jutsu, which apparently is a combination of lightning and earth. Most of her attacks were similar to earth jutsu, though she could also create crystal spears in the air and hurl them at me. Several of her techniques were extremely powerful and I suspect they have a high chakra cost to use, so she probably has higher than average reserves. She also has a very high level of taijutsu. She was more than capable of keeping pace with me. I would even go so far as to say she was way out of my league, as it was the only reason our battle ended in a stalemate was because she had underestimated me. Is this her?" Tsunade took a slip of paper from a file Shizune handed her. Placing it on the table, she slid it over to Naruto, who picked it up and saw a picture of the very same woman he had fought. He saw that, aside from the picture, there was very little information on her. Only a few lines about her being sighted in a small town in some country he had never been to. "Yep, that's definitely her." Naruto set the sheet back down and looked at Tsunade with a frown. "I can't help but notice you don't have much information on her." "That's because we don't know much about the ninja under Orochimaru's command beyond Kabuto," Tsunade said. She grabbed the sheet again and gave it to Shizune, who placed it back in the file and made to return the file to its drawer. Turning back to look at the blonde before her, she continued. "The only reason we even know of this one is because she was sighted during an incident in Tsunanokuni and was apparently responsible for the destruction of several small villages. The only thing Jiraiya was able to learn after that was that this woman, Guren, is apparently Orochimaru's most elite fighter." "Ugh. So you're telling me I went up against the second strongest person Orochimaru has to offer next to himself? If that was the case, then he was lucky to survive. Never in his life had he been more thankful that a lot of people still tended to underestimate him." "That is exactly what I'm telling you. I guess that means I need to train harder," Naruto determined, making Tsunade and Shizune look at each other before smiling. "And speaking of training, just when the hell can we expect to get Uro-sennin back? I mean, I was supposed to be on a 3-year training trip. Yet it's only been a few months since I left. Unfortunately, we have no clue when Jiraiya will be returning from wherever he is." Tsunade grimaced a bit. For some reason, it was really hard to lie to Naruto. Not that she couldn't do it, but in that she didn't like doing it. Shaking her head and thoughts inside of it away, she continued. "Which is why I figured I would give you a mission that should take quite a bit of time to accomplish." His curiosity getting the better of him, Naruto couldn't help but ask, "What kind of mission are we talking about?" "A solo mission," Tsunade said, almost smirking when she saw Naruto's eyes light up. No matter how mature the brat tried to act, the thought of a solo mission was enough to send him into a fit of daydreams. No doubt of rescuing princesses and damsels and the like. Reaching into the bin for the mission contact she was thinking of, Tsunade eventually found it and set it out in front of Naruto. Eager, the blonde quickly snatched it up and began scanning the contract. "A request from Torino Kuni?" Naruto frowned as he tried to remember his geography lessons with Anko. It was ridiculously easy, painful as well, and with a shiver at remembering the senbone that had gotten stuck in his ass for getting the location wrong, Naruto figured out where Torino Kuni was. "That's pretty far from Konoha." "That was our first reaction as well," said Shizune, speaking up for the first time since Naruto started giving his report. "An apparition in the form of a cursed warrior is terrorizing the people and giving rise to wicked rumors." Naruto took several seconds to think about what this statement meant. After a while a small shudder escaped him. They don't mean there's some kind of ghost haunting them, do they?" Seeing the way the blonde shivered caused Tsunade to lean more of her weight onto the desk, a smirk on her face. "They believe it's the ghost of a long-dead warrior who's come back to haunt them." "Why? You're not scared, are you?" "PFFFTT. As if I would be afraid of some dinky old ghost. Naruto tried not to let the cold chill get to him as he rolled his eyes. When did it get so drafty in here? Shaking himself out of his funk, and completely missing the amused glance Tsunade and Shizune shared, he said, "It's probably just some idiot in a costume trying to scare the people." So what does this cursed warrior look like? The only description we have to go on is that the cursed warrior is always seen wearing white samurai armor, Tsunade said, hiding her amusement. Anyways, because of how far out this mission is, as well as the fact that all of our Chunin and Jonin are on missions and the Fusionon who could have taken it have been taken out of commission, you're really the only person we have for this mission. Right, I should have figured it was something like that, Naruto said with a sigh. So much for his thinking that Tsunade had given him this mission because she felt he was the best person for the job. Straightening up, he looked back at the blonde woman to say, "I guess I don't have much choice but to take it. It's either do this or sit around doing nothing while I wait for Uro-sennin to return." He couldn't train here, the few techniques he was working on his own were incredibly dangerous, not to mention he didn't want others to know about them until he was sure they worked. Maybe not even then. After all, he needed some trump cards to use against Akatsuki. "Since I'm ordering you to go, you don't actually have a right to refuse anyways," Tsunade stated, her left eyebrow twitching at how Naruto spoke as if he could just refuse a mission she gave him. "Anyways, you are to meet Chizumo, the man who paid for this mission at the North Gate in 1 hour. Yosh," Naruto snapped off a salute before he got a move on, hopping out the window instead of taking the door. "Damn it, Naruto," Tsunade shouted as moved over to window and watched as the whiskered blonde landed on the adjacent building, where he began hopping from roof to roof. Don't pick up Jiraiya's bad habits. While she couldn't be certain, she was almost sure she heard Naruto laughing at her. Or maybe it was just the wind. Stupid brat, always acting like an idiot. Stupid Jiraiya for letting Naruto pick up his bad habits. When I see that damn pervert again, I'm gonna make him sure he understands what will happen if he corrupts Naruto. Somewhere in Tsuchi no Kuni, Jiraiya shivered. For a moment there, he believed death had touched him. Naruto's journey to Torino Kuni started the moment he reached the North Gate. Chizumo, an earnest-looking man in his mid-20s with brown hair and dark eyes covered by a pair of glasses had already been waiting for him. After signing out, the two left Konoha and began their very long walk. And Naruto was bored. Ever since his graduation, the blonde had worked very far on keeping himself from acting out like he used to, and while he still did it on occasion, the instances were getting more and more rare. While he had calmed down much from his hyperactive self since his graduation, there were very few things that actually caused Naruto's conscience to waver. Walking at a civilian's pace to a land that was so far that in doing so would take a month to get there was one of those things. In an effort to keep his mind from wandering, Naruto observed the man who had requested the mission he was on. The clothing Chizumo was wearing showed just how impoverished he was. He was wearing a straw hat, and a poncho that was made out of hay. His shirt was a standard blue gi that had a pair of green sleeves sewn on. Wrapped around his waist were several white bandages that looked like someone had taken a knife over the left side and cut it open. He had very drab-looking gray pants with a set of leg warmers on the bottom attached to his legs via a pair of strings on the top and bottom. On his feet were a pair of old and worn Zori sandals. The man also looked like he was about to die on his feet. "You know, I can't help but notice that you don't look so good," Naruto commented idly, getting Chizumo to turn his head and look at the blonde. "Are you feeling alright?" "Ah ha ha ha." Chizumo gave a sheepish, if somewhat weak-sounding, laugh as he scratched the back of his head. "Of course I'm alright. Don't worry about me one bit. I gurgle." The loud sound of a stomach rumbling filled the air. Naruto blinked, then looked down at the guy's bandaged stomach, which made even more gurgling noises. Hey, I guess I'm a tad hungry," Chizumo admitted. "Right." Naruto drew out with a large sweat drop on the back of his head. If the sound of this guy's stomach was anything to go by, a tad hungry was a severe understatement. Shukaku's insane shouting had been at a lower volume than this. Shaking his head he said, "You sound like you haven't eaten in days." "Ah well, I had to pay for this mission with money out of my own pocket," Chizumo explained, scratching his left cheek with his index finger. "So I'm pretty much broke." Naruto raised an eyebrow. This guy paid for a mission out of his own pocket? That meant either one of two things: this guy was seriously dedicated to his country, or the country was completely broke as well. It could also be a bit of both. Commenting on this, Naruto said, "So this mission must be pretty important to you, huh?" Chizumo looked down at his feet as he walked, a crestfallen expression on his face. It could mean the difference between life and death for a very dear friend of mine. A frown marred Naruto's face for a moment before his expression cleared. "Do you want to talk about it?" The smile on Chizumo's face told Naruto that the guy would be more than happy to share his entire life story with him if he asked. "It's my friend, Sagi, you see," the earnest-looking man started. "We've been close friends ever since we were little. We were raised like brothers. He's now the daimyo of Torino Kuni." Naruto raised an eyebrow. This guy was best friends with the daimyo of his country? No wonder this guy was dedicated enough to getting this mission that he would gladly give all the money he had to pay for it. Of course, that did beg the question of why he was wearing such old and weathered clothing. Perhaps Naruto's belief that Torino Kuni was in a poor state right now held more truth than he had realized. Granted, with something like a ghost haunting them he probably shouldn't be surprised. However, recently things have been very hard for my friend, Chizumo continued, unaware of Naruto's thoughts. With the death of his father, Lord Owashi, and then his twin sister died shortly after. The whiskered blonde had to hold in a wince at that. He knew how hard it was to lose someone you love. How much harder would be to lose two people you loved within such a short time span. Chizumo looked into the tree line they were walking past as he said, "And now the friend I was new, always smiling, always cheerful has become a completely different person. He no longer shows his face in the village, even when I visit him." Naruto wished he could relate, but he didn't really have any experience with watching as your friend went from kind and happy to a recluse. And not just because Naruto had only gained friends recently, since he became a Jonin. In fact, the only person Naruto could create parallels to with this guy's problem was Sasuke, and really, the Uchiha had never really changed. Even during the academy he had been a moody, broody asshole who cared for nothing but gaining the power to kill his brother. And now he was with Orochimaru. Shaking his head, Naruto dispelled thoughts of Sasuke's stupidity and focused on Chizumo as he spoke. "This change in him worries the others, because Sagi is the daimyo for our country. I don't really care about all that, I'm worried because he's my friend. I would do anything to help him, to bring the old Sagi back again. No matter the cost." Okay, now Naruto was impressed. From the way this guy spoke, he would gladly give his life for this Sagi character. Even in friends that kind of dedication was hard to come by. Smiling, Naruto said, "I'm sure things will work out in the end." He turned his head to look up at the sky, so missed the look of shock on Chizumo's face. "I was once told that when people share a strong bond, their emotions and feelings will reach each other. I'm sure your friend will eventually come to realize how worried you are and get out of his funk. Who knows, maybe if I solve this ghost case, things with your friend will get better." He shivered at the word ghost, but didn't react otherwise. Naruto would never admit, even to himself, that the supernatural scared the other living crap out of him. Give him a Baijiu to face over a ghost any day. "Naruto. Thank you," Chizumo said with a smile. Naruto looked over at the man curiously, shrugged, then gave a grin. He was about to open his mouth to speak when gurgle. Naruto's sweat dropped as the man's face took on a Hinata shade of red. Sighing, he said, "Why don't we stop for a break and get something to eat?" Chizumo, it seemed, was more than agreeable to this plan as he sat down right where he stood, causing even more sweat drops to appear on the blonde shinobi's head. Naruto watched in utter astonishment and growing horror as Chizumo put away his sixth serving of rice, scarfing the food down faster than an akimichi at an all-you-could-eat buffet. Seeing such a skinny guy eating so much food was almost as amusing as it was disturbing, and Naruto, tactless as he was, had no trouble commenting on this. "Dear Kami, I don't think I've ever seen anyone eat as much as you." "Ah ha ha ha," Chizumo laughed a tad sheepishly, even as he wiped away some of the rice stuck on his face. "I know, I'm sorry, everyone's always wondering where I put it all." Naruto couldn't help but wonder where all that food went to. He also couldn't help but wonder if this was what people saw whenever he was eating ramen. Maybe he should think about slowing down his consumption of the delicious noodles if eating as fast as he did made this much of mess. Now there's a scary thought. Naruto eating ramen slowly, not the mess. Shaking his head, Naruto decided to get back on track and try to learn what he could for this mission. "Right, well, why don't you tell me a little bit about this cursed warrior that has been appearing in your village?" Chizumo stopped eating his eighth serving of rice to look over at him. The man swallowed what was in his mouth, making Naruto cringe a bit. Seriously, if he was this bad, Naruto swore to himself that he would start eating with better table manners, then said, "Some people think it's the disembodied spirit of Sagi's father, Owashi-sama." Naruto shivered a bit at the words disembodied and spirit, but quickly shook it off. Deciding that he really didn't want to hear any more about this ghost business for the moment, Naruto decided to change the subject. So, why don't you tell me a bit more about Torino Kuni? You know, like its history and background. Alright, Chizumo said, setting his half-eaten ninth serving of rice aside for the moment so he could speak. It's called Torino Kuni because our capital is built on a lake to which the birds come when they migrate. It's always been a beautiful and peaceful place, made fertile by the waters from the lake and the many canals. The first signs of trouble came from the sudden death of our previous daimyo, Owashi-sama. As to who would take over the leadership, it was between his son, Sagi-sama, and his most trusted advisor, Komi-sama. Naruto had to blink for a moment as he heard that Sagi's position as daimyo had actually been in question. Unlike the Kiges, who were selected based on their strength and abilities as a leader, daimyos were always selected by blood. Only someone who was of the same blood of the previous daimyo could become the next daimyo, unless the entire family was killed off. That an advisor could become daimyo was troubling. Of course, he didn't know enough about Torino Kuni to actually make any kind of true assessment to the situation. Maybe that was just how they did things there. Komi-sama argued that Sagi was far too young to assume the role of daimyo, and there were many who agreed with him. Nevertheless, Sagi-sama assumed the role of daimyo, mainly because Moso-sama, our high priest and my master, agreed to act as regent, advising Sagi and helping him govern our country. Naruto rubbed his chin with a thoughtful expression, noting the difference in the man's tone when he spoke of Moso to when he talked about Komi, but didn't say anything as he allowed the man to continue. Then, less than half a year later, Tokidono, Sagi's sister, died as suddenly as his father. Naruto narrowed his eyes a bit, but didn't comment. Chizumo didn't notice his expression as he continued, saying, "Since that time, the Sagi I knew has become a completely different person. He's retreated from view, sees no one, and governs from the confines of his palace." And it was about that time that the White Warrior began appearing in the capital. Rumors started to spread about Owashi-sama's death, that it was not a natural one. People began to say that the White Warrior was, in fact, the spirit of Owashi-sama, come back to Earth to wreak vengeance on the traitors who murdered him. Naruto gulped, an action which Chizumo thankfully did not notice. Unfortunately for the blonde, someone else did and had no problems teasing him. "You were such a baby, Naruto." A growl almost escaped his lips at the teasing sound of Kyuubi's face. No one called him a baby. Fortunately he was able to keep it internal. It wouldn't do for Chizumo to think he was some kind of psychopath, after all. "I am not a baby. I've just never dealt with real ghosts before." Within the confines of his mind, Kyuubi giggled. "It's alright to feel frightened. After all, you may be a big bad shinobi, but you're still a kid. If you want, you can come into the seal and I'll provide you with some succor, Naruto-kun." Gah. Naruto shivered at the way Kyuubi spoke his voice. Stupid Baijuo, trying to act all sexy to mess with his mind. What's worse was that he was almost tempted to do as she said. Almost. His actions did not go unnoticed, however, as Chizumo watched Naruto shiver with a bit of worry. "Are you alright, Naruto-san?" he asked, sounding concerned. "You look a little." Actually, Chizumo really couldn't come up with a proper way to describe how Naruto looked. His face looked pale and he had broken out into a cold sweat. At the same time, his cheeks were suffused with red, almost as if he was blushing. Not able to think of anything, the man finished lamely with, "Well, you look like you're not yourself." "I'm fine," Naruto was, shivering a bit more as his fear of ghosts and embarrassment at Kyuubi's words warred within his mind. Doing his best to shake them both off, he said, "Just remembering something is all." Not wanting Chizumo to question him anymore, and needing to speak of something, anything, so that he could ignore the giggling within his mind, Naruto changed the subject. "I'm not really sure I believe this cursed warrior is actually a ghost. When in doubt, go with denial." "Then what do you think this cursed warrior is?" Chizumo asked, looking slightly skeptical. The man seemed to be somewhat superstitious. Not that Naruto could say anything, much as he may try to deny it, the blonde had always believed in, and been deathly afraid of, ghosts. "It's quite possible that this ghost is the work of someone who is looking to spread chaos in your country to gain power," Naruto said, trying to think through this logically. He refused to believe that a ghost was actually involved. Though this could have been more out of fear than actually believing his own words. "You think so?" Chizumo asked, surprise evident on his features. "Yes," Naruto stated, more to himself than Chizumo. But who would do such a thing? Naruto was beginning to suspect this man was as naive as he used to be. There were always greedy people who would be more than willing to kill others if it got them what they wanted. Hell, there were people who would do even more despicable things if it allowed them to accomplish their goals. Naruto's mind instantly went to Orochimaru, who was willing to defile the previous Hokages by resurrecting them from the grave and forcing them to fight against their village. If there were people out there who were willing to commit atrocities like that, then there had to be hundreds of people who were killing someone and pretend to be his deceased spirit. Whoever had the most to gain from Owashi's death, Naruto said, pausing in thought as he reviewed all of the information that had just been given to him. He looked over at Chizumo before continuing. From what you've told me, there are two people here who stand to gain the most. The High Priest, Moso, could have. My master is a good and virtuous man. Chizumo interrupted Naruto, some anger lacing his voice. The blonde was actually taken aback by the venom in the man's voice. From the way he was talking, one would think Naruto had just insulted his ancestors. Before the blonde Chunin could even think of speaking, Chizumo continued, saying, he couldn't be involved in this. Naruto looked at the man before shrugging. It was obvious Chizumo was biased towards this Moso guy, but the blonde knew he had to look at everything objectively. Facts were facts, and even if Chizumo firmly believed that his master would never be involved in a crime like this, there was always the possibility that the man he served was simply lying to him in order to gain his trust. Such things were not uncommon. Still, he said nothing more on the man's master, not wanting to anger him. Instead, he said, then there is also Komi. It is quite possible that he assassinated your daimyo to gain power, then got angry when it didn't work. Considering the daimyo's advisor had been considered for ascension to daimyo himself, it was a very plausible theory. And it was clear that this was the one Chizumo believed. It's true, he's been complaining bitterly ever since Sagi-sama was chosen over him, Chizumo stated firmly. His eyes seemed to blaze with conviction, or desperation as he grasped at straws. It was hard to tell with him. I wouldn't put it past him to manufacture the cursed warrior himself, and then started these evil rumors. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, Naruto said, bringing Chizumo down from his fanatical high. It was obvious to Naruto that the earnest man truly believed Komi was responsible, but that was more of a byproduct of his belief that his master, Moso, was too just to be involved in something like an assassination. Naruto had no such beliefs one way or the other, and until he had more clues with which to go on, would hold them both in suspicion until one or the other was proven innocent or guilty. After all, a ninja must always look underneath the underneath. After the first few days of travel, Naruto ended up growing tired of the civilian pace being set. In order to speed up their progress and get to Torino Kuni faster, he had taken to carrying Chizumo piggyback. That way he could use his chakra-enhanced speed to blaze a trail to the man's country. With the pace the blonde had set, the kind of pace which only the likes of Mido Guy and Rock Lee would ever bother going, they arrived in the capital of Torino Kuni within 2 weeks, instead of the standard month. Naruto had to admit the country was beautiful just as Chizumo had said. The capital possessed a lot more flora than most other cities, giving life to the otherwise standard buildings and dirt roads. Much of the city itself had walls following the roadways, creating an interconnecting set of paths that were much like a maze. With his unnaturally sharp eyes, Naruto could see the large hedging surrounding what the blonde assumed was the palace, even though it was the dead of night. Running into the capital city with Chizumo still on his back, the blonde followed the path set for him by large plaster walls. So which way is it to your master's place? Asked Naruto as his eyes moved back and forth across the city. The entire place, except for the palace in the center, all looked the exact same to him. Even if Naruto knew where Moso's house was, he would probably get lost because everything looked identical. It's just a few blocks ahead. If you go right at this next intersection, then take another left 2 intersections down, you should see it. I'll point it out to you when we get closer. Right. As Naruto continued moving, the sound of a whistle pierced the night air. It was a pretty shrill noise, one that cut through the air like the wail of a banshee. It sounded like some kind of alarm. Skidding to a stop, the blonde shinobi surveyed the area while saying out loud, "What was that sound?" While Naruto did not find out what the sound was or where it had come from, he did find something else which was likely the reason the noise had appeared in the first place. Up in the sky above him was a figure clad in white samurai armor. It floated through the air above him, hovering just like one would expect of a ghost. The sight sent a chill down Naruto's spine that he refused to give into. He wouldn't fail some mission just because of some stupid ghost. Clad all in white with a helmet and a halberd in its hand, wearing the mask of an evil demon with the eyes of fire, there can be no doubt about it. That's the cursed warrior. Naruto's right eye twitched violently. Did Chizumo have to give him such an evil and creepy description? It wasn't like he needed one, and really, listening to the guy just made him feel that much more jittery. Focusing back to the task at hand, Naruto began saying, "Okay, this is where you get off. Chizumo looked surprised as Naruto set him down, then made the hand seal to his favorite jutsu. Kage Bunshine no Jutsu. Two clones appeared next to them in a puff of smoke. The blonde pointed at the copies he made and said, "These two will escort you to your master's house. I'm going to go after this cursed warrior and see just what kind of warrior he really is." Not even giving Chizumo time to say anything, Naruto pumped chakra to his legs and jumped, taking to the sky and landing on the roof of a building several feet away. He dashed off, hopping across the roofs as he chased after the so-called cursed warrior. Looking up at the sky, he saw that the armor-clad warrior was still floating up above him, just a few meters out from his position. He was soon forced to abandon his roof hopping when he entered a more forested area. As the trees passed by him in a blur, Naruto looked on ahead and saw that he was coming up on a single building surrounded by a small wooden fence. Without hesitating, the blonde Chunin ran towards the building, coming to a stop just a few feet in front of it. The building he was staring at reminded Naruto of some of the shrines he had seen. It was elevated several feet above the ground by rocks that had been compressed together, then had sediment poured in between them to form a wall. There was a staircase in front of him, leading to a small rectangular pedestal that looked like it was used to light incense. Behind the pedestal sat a building that looked very much like the Hondan of a Shinto shrine, right down to its architectural style. Only the scent of death that hung in the air, stale and old, let Naruto know that this was a burial site, likely to the recently deceased daimyo and Sagi's father. A frown marred Naruto's face as his eyes scanned the area, glowing unnaturally bright as his enhanced vision cut through the night with ease. He couldn't see anything, and his hearing couldn't pick up any movement either. Channeling Yuki into his eyes, the blonde's irises went from blue to amethyst, the pupils elongating into slits. His frown increased when he still couldn't see nothing, not even a flicker of chakra anywhere. That didn't bode well. "Kyubi, can you sense anything?" At hearing Naruto's question, the great Baijuwu perked up. Extending her senses outside of the blonde's body, she looked for any sign of the armor-clad figure that her tenant had been chasing. After a moment, a frown marred her face. She sighed, then shook her head and said, "No, nothing. Odd. Could they be masking their presence?" Kyubi scoffed, sounding insulted as she said, "They may be able to hide to your inferior senses. But no human can hope to hide from me." The very notion that somebody, a mere human at that, could possibly hide their presence so thoroughly that even she could not sense it was ridiculous. Naruto gulped as the chills once more returned. So then, it might really be a ghost. A severe case of eye twitching was the response to his fear. "Oh, for the love of, when did you become such a coward?" "Oi!" Naruto shouted in his mindscape, affronted by Kyubi's accusation. "I am not a coward. I just don't like ghosts." Kyubi sighed, then rolled her eyes and said, "Even if it is a ghost, you can still hurt it with ninjutsu. Remember, a ghost is nothing more than a spirit. Therefore, it is made up entirely of spiritual energy. Chakra is partially made up of spiritual energy, and Yuki is far more potent than chakra and possesses a more supernatural aspect to it. It doesn't matter if the thing you are dealing with is a ghost, you should be more than capable of killing it just like anything else. How can I kill something if it's already dead? Grr. You know what I mean. Stop being so damn obstinate." Kyubi's words were cut off as the door leading into the burial site opened with a loud creak. Naruto stiffened, fear coursing through him. Fuck, he just had to be dealing with a ghost, didn't he? God, he hated his life. Despite his fear, the blonde had the peace of mind to summon a pair of kunai. He thought about getting out his katana, or even Kubikiri Haucho. Having a big-ass head-cleaving blade would make him feel infinitely better right about now, but wasn't sure if weapons would even work yet. No sense in bringing out the big guns until he figured out if they would even be of any use to him. The warrior in white armor slowly stepped out of the doorway. It then proceeded to float past the pedestal and land on the ground a few feet away from Naruto. Said blonde did his best not to let the creepy glowing yellow eyes of the armored warrior get to him. The way they were staring at him was really giving him the creeps. Unable to deal with the look anymore, the whiskered shinobi pointed at the warrior and shouted, "Alright. I don't know who the fuck you are. But if you think I'm gonna let some creepy-ass specter scare me, you've got another thing coming." Within her seal, Kyubi facepalmed. Is it just me, or is Naruto allowing his fear over ghosts to revert himself back to his original self? The armored warrior didn't respond, and Naruto, unaware of Kyubi's question, decided that he had enough. With a flick of his wrists, the blonde sent the two kunai in his hands soaring through the air. They impaled the chest plate of the warrior with quite a bit of voice, enough to send it stumbling backwards several steps as the dull planking sound of metal piercing metal echoed throughout the clearing. Still, the apparition didn't seem at all bothered by having a pair of kunai impaling it, as it just straightened back up. Eyes twitching as he stared at the thing, for that was all he could call this armored warrior. Naruto decided that he was going to bring out the big guns. Sword. Reaching into his pouch, he summoned a sealing scroll from one of the storage seals inside his kunai pouch. He unrolled the scroll in midair, biting his thumb and then swiping it along the parchment, a thin trail of blood following in its wake. With a burst of smoke, Naruto unsealed Gaara Haucho. He swung the blade up, letting it rest on his shoulder and took a wide stance. For a moment, neither of them moved. Naruto's amethyst eyes narrowed. His feet slid further apart, rustling the dirt underneath, but that was the only movement he made. With slow, steady breaths as he tried to calm his beating heart, Naruto waited for the thing in front of him to make the first move. It did, taking a single step forward, its armor clanking together, rattling ominously. Naruto didn't let it take another step. Bursting forward, propelled by a Yuki-enhanced push off the ground, Naruto almost glided above the ground as he sped towards the cursed warrior. He channeled Yuki through Gaara Haucho, the blade becoming consumed with an intense flame of ethereal purple. Naruto dashed past the armored figure, the large head cleaver slashing through the samurai armor like a hot knife through butter. Skidding to a stop just a few feet behind the warrior, the blonde turned around and went back into a ready stance, waiting to see what would happen next. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Naruto was about to begin freaking out about how his Yuki didn't even seem to be capable of defeating this apparition, when light burst forth from the armor. Bright rays of light came out of the sword slash the blonde had made in the armored body. From left shoulder to right hip the intense rays shot out from the inside, as if something was trying to break through the armored shell. As the light began to disappear, the armored figure fell backwards, hitting the ground with a loud clang. Naruto waited for a few moments, wanting to make sure that the thing he had attacked would stay down. After several seconds, which to him felt like hours, the blonde moved, cautiously, towards the armored figure. He stopped when his foot was close enough to touch it and frowned, then gulped. Kneeling down he grabbed the first piece of armor he could get his hands on, the helmet, and lifted it off the ground. Looking inside of the armor, Naruto paled when he saw that it was empty. Oh my god. This really is a ghost. This is so not cool. Why did I ever accept this mission? Oh, wait, I didn't. Oba-chan ordered me to go on it. Damn that woman. She knew I would run into a ghost and be forced into mortal combat with it. I bet she's laughing at me even now. That horrid, loathsome dash for love of all that is good and holy, shut up. Kyuubi snapped from inside the seal. However, Naruto was too far gone, having gone from complaining about how horrible Tsunade was to send him on a mission that would involve fights with the supernatural, to ranting about how he was gonna, in his own words, prank her ass into oblivion for making him go on this stupid mission. Kyuubi sighed, sitting down on the bed and covering her ears with as many of the fluffy pillows around her that she could reach. You know, she commented, her voice muffled by the large red pillow on her face. He's as bad as you are when it comes to dealing with ghosts and the like. There were no words spoken, but Kyuubi got the distinct feeling of embarrassment coming from the area around her. She let out a mild chuckle, but was forced to stop when she realized Naruto was still continuing his rant, only now it was about something entirely unrelated to ghosts or pranks. And when I get out of here, I'm gonna treat myself to several dozen bowls of ramen. I wonder what kind I should have? Maybe miso, pork, and chicken. Or chicken, shrimp, and miso. Or maybe. Kyuubi groaned as she buried her face in her bed. Kami, what did I do to deserve this? She had not been expecting an answer, but Kyuubi thought she heard snickering. Lifting up a single finger, she gave a one-fingered salute, even though she was sure her guardian couldn't even see it. She sighed, all Kyuubi could do now was pray Naruto ran out of breath soon. Because if she had to listen to this brat talk for much longer, then she was going to go insane. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.